Hey everyone, this is Martin from How to Make Mobile Games on February the 22nd, 2018. Just heading home now from work in central Manchester. And this video is about should you get investment for your company and whether it's a good idea and my experience with it as well. I'm channeling the audio, I think I'm channeling it through my headphones, so I don't know if this is going to turn out okay. It's the first time. I just had a quick try then as I was setting up the video and it sounded pretty clear, but I couldn't tell if the audio was coming through from my from the mobile or from the headphones. So hopefully either way it's clear and not too noisy, but do let me know, guys. Oh, by the way, Eric from Overpass, thank you for the message. I just saw it before. I think it was Eric. I think that's your name. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but yeah, dude, long time no speak, long time. I'm just going to go for this here. Things are well, thank you, man. I hope you're doing well. Also, I'd seen a couple of updates on your channel, I think a few weeks back, and I hope everything is going smoothly. I'm getting calls, sorry guys. Oh, by the way, Eric, as well, if you are looking for any kind of game development or app development services, we do that now at my company in Manchester, the company that I work for, and it's a fully professional team. They've done loads of stuff, so you know my email. You can get in touch there, of course, if you are looking for an extra team or if you want to refer a project, of course. So the other message quickly was from Hassan on the video that I did 2 days ago, and I think you were asking, one is on Chartboost ad network for mobile games. If you make money when somebody downloads a game through the ads that you show in your game. So if you have a game and you show ads in that game, then that will make you money if somebody downloads a game through your ads. And also, if you choose a country, whichever country you choose is the one that the ads will appear in. So if you chose only to show in the US, then ads will only appear there. So it's better to just leave it open unless you've got some specific reason to not show it worldwide. So today, guys, I went to a quick investment presentation, which was pretty interesting. And so I thought I'd talk about that and share, because I've always had that in my mind about whether I, as Cobalt Play or Plant and Tap before, whether we should have gone the investment route, trying to get investment. And my early experience of this was that in 2009, I think it was, and this was when I was first trying to get into games, or 2008 roughly, I started to put together an FPS game, and it was the first time I was using Unity. Actually, that was mid to late 2010. And I was building a third-person shooter game, and the idea was to build this game with a sort of arena-based kind of competition FPS or third-person shooter game, similar to Overwatch, and then have a prototype built, show the investors, get them interested, get the money, and then, you know, I have the main sort of team ready. And I did. I had myself as sort of the main designer / producer, because that was the main kind of thing I was doing at the time, was a production role. And also an artist friend who was an art director in Shanghai, and then a game programmer who was also in Shanghai at the time. And I thought I'd put together some kind of a good game design document, and then I started to work on the cash flow and how much money it could make. And this was kind of like trying to pull pieces of information, whatever I could get. It was like trying to shoot in the dark, and then also trying to find investors to speak to. And if I remember correctly, I had spoken with one guy who was kind of interested, but he didn't want to do a third-person shooter game. He wanted us to do more of a what was the big game that had been released at the time? Plants vs Zombies. So he really liked that game, and he really wanted that to be built. I was like, well, we've got a third-person shooter game. A few years later, I would also, or maybe a year or so later, when I was doing Cobalt Play, I was looking for investment then, and I had spoken to another guy and shown him all the numbers and what I was looking for, and we had lots of calls, and it took a load of time to actually put this presentation together, but it just fizzled out, and I'm not sure why. I can't remember why. I think maybe they just weren't interested, and then they didn't get back to me. So, and then I spoke to another guy who was also in Shanghai, and I said I was looking for this amount of money, and they instead wanted me to come and work for them as a sort of like outsourcing studio or something. So I did have a little bit of experience of trying to put together a proposal and trying to get investment. The other one, actually, guys, that I did when I tried to get money was a team that was building an MMO game. Now, this was a Chinese team, and I approached them and said, hey, I'd like to work with you, and the way I'd like to work with you is by raising funds and, getting the money for you to build up the team and build this awesome MMO. When I say awesome MMO, we didn't have any kind of design document in place. There wasn't any real game in place. It was just this one guy who had the game prototype, and I had no control whatsoever at all. Actually, that was at the point when I decided to just completely learn Unity and do it myself, because the problem was that I had this team of guys, like friends, contacts, 2 or 3 guys. They were sort of lead programmers, and one was an artist, and they had built the sort of prototype or framework of starting to build this project. A couple of guys who I didn't even know very well, and they were, because of the language barrier and cultural barrier, that also added distance between us. But the main thing is that I didn't have any control. The project wasn't mine. I couldn't build it. I didn't know how the heck to do coding. I had no idea. I'd sort of dabbled a little bit in Talk Engine and Windows 6.5 at the time, but trying to raise funds for it was quite difficult because we had nothing to present at all. And so the investor that I spoke to at the time, who was a friend of mine, just gave some very blunt feedback and said, this it doesn't even look good. It doesn't stand out. You've not made any money. You have got sort of a partial team put together, but you've not got any, solid cash flow projections and so on. So my experience with getting investment is that it's very difficult. It is a long process, and it is, I don't know if you'd call it a full-time process, but it definitely does take time away from your main business if you're working on it all the time. So, say for example, with me in Cobalt Play, trying to chase investors or get investment contacts was pretty difficult. So, whether you should get investment or not, I think you have to plan it quite early. I think you have to figure out, okay, the idea for this whole business, guys, is that we're going to get an early prototype done. We're going to get some proof of concept, i.e. get customers using the product or service, get some early cash flow if possible, because that obviously is plays better when doing when you're presenting your pitch to investors. And but then you've got to go through the process of actually getting in touch with a ton of investors, doing the presentation and making the money. And the other major sort of considerations are things like, are you going to give equity or debt investment? So are you just going to ask for money like $50,000 and then you'll pay that back plus interest to the investor? Or are you going to give them equity, as in you're going to give them a percentage of the company? I think it's always a difficult question to ask, and I'm sorry I'm not able to give like clear advice as to yes or no. A lot of the stories that I hear of companies when I read about, say, Facebook, or when I watch the Facebook movie or whatever, or hear about amazing companies that did really well and they're now massive global companies with several billion a year turnover and all that. Google, as an example, they got investment. TV series like Silicon Valley, even though it's a comedy series, is grounded in some kind of truth when it comes to that whole investment game. Do you know what I mean? You have a product, you get some early traction in terms of users, or you can see like it's viable, the technology, you can see how it can disrupt things, and you go and find investors. And that always felt like oh, that's the way you should do it. Yeah, you've got to go out and get money. And maybe that's true, because after 6-7 years of trying to accompany myself and being able to pay for myself and being able to make a little bit of profit and being able to buy a house with my family and as an investment, and take holidays and things, and buy a car, yes, that was good. But it certainly wasn't at the level of what I was hoping to achieve, after 6 or 7 years of hard work in that particular business. In terms of my career and my skill and where I am now, that's great. But you're looking at the business after 6 or 7 years. Would it have been different if I had got investment and really tried to push that? Early in the App Store days, maybe that would have been possible, because there was much more money to be made. It was much easier to make money at that time. It's kind of early 2012, or even when the App Store was first released, I think it was 2007 or 8. You probably would have been a lot easier to get investment at that point. And my opinion now would be to, yes, go for it, because I think, in my situation, or like in somebody say, like, not in my situation now, but in my previous Cobble Play situation, my opinion would be, yeah, try and get the investment, because I think for a lot of, say, businesses, if it's like a code thing where you're building a digital product, you're not really, you can fall into the trap of just building something small and not knowing the next steps and not knowing what to do in order to put together a team, or not knowing how to expand and not knowing the exit plan. The thing is, when you get venture capitalists and angel investors coming on board, they help you to structure the company. They help you to think about how are you going to do this, because obviously they want a return. And if they make a return, then supposedly you'll make a return as well, and the company will hopefully be successful. If you're very financially motivated and you're very success motivated, then I think it puts you in that arena of people who can really influence you in a good way. They can give you a positive, very positive influence on how to go about this whole investment game, how to raise money, how to build a successful company, and play devil's advocate with your business model, as in poke holes in it so that it becomes a stronger model. Whereas if you don't do that, maybe you're going down the avenue of having a business model that really isn't that successful or is too competitive. So say, for example, now, if I was to go to an investor and say, I've got this mobile game that I want to get investment for, and I want to need a team to grow this game, and it's going to be like Clash of Clans, but it's going to be better, and it's going to be online and all this, they'll probably say no. And the reason is because the mobile game market is far too saturated. It's extremely difficult to get ahead in mobile games now, and if there's no kind of IP, intellectual property, of high value behind the game, then, well, they'll poke these holes in the business plan, which is a good thing. Now, that can be very, it can be a bit of a knock when you get that kind of feedback, but it's true. They've been through it. They know the markets. They know what is making money, especially if you're speaking to an investor who specifically knows about tech and apps and websites and software and that kind of stuff, and the business models. It's a good thing. So don't be too put down if you do approach investors and talk to them and they just shoot your idea down, because they've been through it and they know what makes money and what doesn't. And if you're passionate about your idea, you don't have to listen to them, of course. You can just go for it. But if you really want to make money and build a successful company, then maybe it's a good idea to listen to them. I think if somebody has been a bedroom coder for the past, oh my god, there's a lot of traffic, for the past 6 or 7 years, and it's not worked, or your business model is not going anywhere, then it's good to reset and start again and think about a different business and approach investors with a different potential business, if that's the way you're inclined. If you are a bedroom coder, I'm speaking specifically about software development here. If you are a bedroom coder, or if you have any kind of small business, you know, if you have a small cake business, for example, or if you make sort of kitchen utensils, if you're perfectly content to be, you know, if you're happy in your business and it's small, but you feel peaceful doing that business, then great, do it. And stick with it, absolutely, if it makes you happy. But if your goal is to be successful and big, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years you're in the business and you're not really getting anywhere, then maybe it's good to think about a different business and figure out, okay, how can I raise capital with investors? You've obviously got to choose your investors correctly as well. You've got to make sure that the guys that you're going to be working with as investors are going to be the right people for you. And they're not just going to be people who are there to give you money, but they're going to be there to support you in terms of figuring out how to get things done. And that, again, that depends on what you want as well. There are investors that just want to be hands-off and not do anything. I've got some crazy traffic here today, guys, so I'm glad I'm doing a video. But my opinion is, if somebody was to start again, I think it's a good idea to go down the investment route, because it makes you more structured. It makes you think clearly about how I'm going to make money, how are we going to grow, how am I going to get a team, is the business model scalable, who are we going to sell to, how are we going to do an exit, you know, as in IPO, initial public offering, where your company goes onto the stock market, who are you going to sell to, where's the cash flow going to come in? All of these really important questions that investors are able to offer. And, you know, again, they might shoot you down and trample all over your idea, and see that as a good thing. See that as a good thing. Again, depending on what your goals are when you're starting a business. If you do just want to have a small little business and work as a, say, freelancer or a sole trader, and great, that's cool, you know, absolutely, if it makes you happy and that's what you want to do. Well, if you want to build up a large business with, you know, that goes global and has 100 people and becomes the next Google or Instagram, then yeah, you'll need to go that way. I think it's one of the questions that I asked today in this meeting as well was, let me think, what was the question? It's always difficult after work. I'm always so tired. My brain slows down at this time. Do investors want you to already be making some cash flow? Because it's kind of like a catch-22 situation where an investor will say to you, have you made any money yet? And you'll say no, because we need investment to make money. And the investor will say, well, you make money first and then I'll give you money. It's like, well, at that point we don't need you. It's not just about the money, though. I get that question, because I mean, I've asked that question as well. But what investors are looking, I think, for more of a proof of concept to that point, and some initial strong revenue, and they can help you to expand into becoming a larger company. And so that's why they want that kind of initial profit or initial cash flow, because it's very, very difficult to achieve, to not lose money as an investor. From what I understand, you know, 9 in 10 companies fail, and it's only that 1 in 10 which succeeds, which makes back the loss that in the money that you gave to all the other 9 companies. I think as well, in terms of like making money and getting rich, if that's your goal, putting yourself in connection with those investors and those pool of people who know how to make money and who are high net worth individuals. I don't really like that phrase, but it's used quite often. Putting yourself in company of those people starts to gear your mind towards it as well. And it's not going to be a super pleasant ride. Of course, you're going to get pressure if you do go down the investment route. There's going to be control over your head. you know, you're going to have to answer to the board and shareholders and obviously the investor. They can probably kick you out of your own company, which has obviously happened to, you know, plenty of people before, I believe, you know, most notably like Steve Jobs in Apple. I think it really is, I think the question of should you get investment, yes or no, is really just dependent on what you feel like doing or what you want to achieve. If you want to be a big company with hundreds of people and make billions worldwide, and you know, well, maybe not to that level, but you want to be a big successful company and you want to own a certain percentage of a market, then yeah, go down the investment route. And there are a lot of capital investment companies out there that will really help. I think the problem with me with Cobalt Play over the years has been that it's not been very structured. The model has never been rethought. Maybe if Cobalt Play, for those of you who don't know, Cobalt Play was the business that I started in 2011, building mobile apps and games. I think if I had an investor at that early stage, and I was speaking with another guy, I just remembered, if I had worked with this guy at the early stage who was interested in working with me to build games for movie IPs, I think if it hadn't have worked, say 2-3 years down the line, and we wasn't making any money, he would have said, okay, Martin, it's just time to close it, forget it. Whereas, since it's just been me working on that business for a long time, it's become a zombie company. I don't think that would have happened if I had gotten investors, because they would have given the pressure or the knowledge or the decision to just say, Martin, forget it. Honestly, it's you know, it didn't work out, the market's too saturated, we can't make enough money, we don't have the right IP, the game genre is not correct, and so on. They would have pushed me to just close it, which would have been a good thing in retrospect. That would have been a good thing, because the problem is with a lot of small companies, I think, and at least in my personal experience, is that you become a zombie company whereby you're not really growing, you're not really living, and you're not really dying as a company. If a company dies, it's like a relationship, you know. If a relationship is over, you get closure and you can move on and you can find the next person if you want to. That's closure. Whereas a relationship where both people are extremely unhappy, have no love for each other, but are just together because, yeah, you might as well be together, who else am I going to find? That's like a zombie situation, you know, and it's not, the relationship isn't really alive and it's not really dead. That's kind of the situation that can happen to a lot of small companies. They're not expanding, they're not dying, they're just sort of getting by month to month, and investors are never going to be interested in that. So I think in my situation, they would have put their foot down years ago and said, Martin, it ain't working, or Martin, we need to completely pivot here, we need to completely change the business model to be something else, you know, esports, or selling physical goods through games, or outsourcing, even though I don't think that's a good business model in terms of, like, say, China, where I was working in an outsourcing company before. It can be good if you get some interesting long-term projects, but if it's just like I was with an outsourcing studio that we built years ago, and it can be a bad situation if you don't have those long-term committed customers whereby you can really get, how do you say, your teeth into the project, and they'll stick with you for a long time. Because that's what happened before. Just to share another story, guys, this journey's going to take a little while longer on the subject of businesses and investment. I started in business with a couple of friends, and this is where I should have got investors, thinking about it now. I had worked at a company in Shanghai, an outsourcing studio, and my job was to basically get outsourcing projects from Europe and bring them to China, and we'd do their artwork, both 3D and 2D, for their games. And after, I think, a year or so, or however long it was, two of my friends approached me and said, hey Martin, we should start our own outsourcing studio. We've got the team, the art director knows friends, and we got all the artists, and Martin, we want you to be our sort of main BD guy to find projects and bring people on board, and great. The problem was that we didn't do any kind of cash flow analysis. Well, we completely failed. It failed big time, and I'll do a separate video talking about all my business failures. It'll be an interesting, it should be an interesting sort of look back / rant, you know, / learning process. But for that company, we were called Visual Idea Studio. We didn't have any cash flow analysis. We didn't do any of that. We didn't look at the numbers, as in how much we'd be making. We didn't have any kind of management structure. We didn't clearly look at the percentages of how much was owed, because those two guys, my two friends, were putting in some money to the business, and I didn't put in any at first, and they were like, well, Martin, we'll just give you some money and some percentage, and then if we're successful, then we'll split the company with you. And I was like, great. But then after quitting my job, and then a few weeks into it, they said, oh, well, you didn't put any money in and you should put some money in. And I was like, well, you know, the thing is, actually at the time I was okay with it, because it was obviously fair, and I felt like if I did put some money in, and I think it was around £2,000, if I did put some money in, then that would give me ownership, and we wouldn't mess each other about, and they wouldn't a year later say, oh no, Martin, you know, we don't want you being involved. But we didn't have any structure like that, so it was a complete fucking mess. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was clear what the art director was doing, and but it wasn't clear in terms of what me and the other guy were doing. But it was a great experience in terms of, like, it felt like we were like a scrappy set of guys just putting this thing together, and it was like we were living on the edge, and it was fun, and it was cool. And we got an office, which was like about £1,200 per month. And my opinion was, no, we shouldn't do that. We don't have any cash flow. We don't have the money. Let's just keep working out of the art director's apartment. And that was another thing as well. We worked out of his apartment for a few weeks, and I was driving there after work every day for the first few weeks, and it was hard work. But we never sat down and said when we should do things like moving into an office. We never clearly said that. If we had an investor, a professional investor, an angel investor, or what's the other one? Oh God, I'm forgetting the word. A corporate investor, a venture capital company working with us, they would have clearly said, or they would have clearly helped us to go through the steps if they were interested in our business, of course. They would have said no to this or no to that, because you're not going to make money and you're going to fail, and what is your role? And they would have really drilled us on the questions that we should have been asking, because they've been through that. But instead, because we were just putting this together ourselves and trying to figure it out as we go, it completely flopped within like 5-6 months. The guys lost their money. I was working, I quit my other job, and I was working part-time teaching English as well, just to pay rent and things, you know. And it was a difficult time for me. It was exciting, but it was also like this ridiculous time where I was working way too much. We had these guys working with us, like I think it was a team of 4, and we promised them like certain money, but we couldn't give it to them, and that was not structured either, and we were paying like really low wages to this one guy who I felt so sorry for. We didn't have any ongoing customers. I think we had one, but then that wasn't working out. The whole thing was a mess, and it was a failure, even though we did learn a ton of stuff. So it wasn't a complete loss. We did really learn a lot of stuff about being, you know, trying to be structured and trying to figure out exactly how businesses work. You know, we were young at the time, and I was like 26 or 7, so not super young, but I think you know, at least as a first business, it was definitely. I did learn a lot, and so did the other guys as well. But if an investor had come in with us at that point, then it would have made a big difference. So I think you have to figure out from a very early time in a business, or before the business even starts, of course, whether you want to go the investment route, because that's going to be the structured situation, but it's going to be pressured and you're not going to have the control that you want. But it might also be the situation where you won't be just the small business forever, you know, like we were with that company in Shanghai, like Cobalt Play was for a long time. And so yeah, I think it's a good way to go, and figuring out what investors are looking for and adapting to that as well. Obviously not to the point where you're not doing something that you enjoy, or you're not, you know, it's so different now that you're not even doing your cake business anymore, you're doing something completely different. But I think that they will be able to direct you in the way of what's the best markets to hit, what's the best demographic, what's the best business model. I think that's a really good thing. So that's my experience with it, guys. And I would like to know more, because honestly, I'm curious to hear what you guys think, because I'm no expert on this. I think it's just my opinion, and those stories that I just told you are really how it worked for me, or just what happened to me. You know, it didn't really work. It was a lot of work, that's for sure. I know that going down the investment route and doing the whole Series A, Series B round of investments is a lot of work. You've got to be prepared for that. Knowing the right people and connecting with them and going to investment groups is a good thing as well. I think that's perhaps what I should have done more of as well, is just connecting with people in investment, because those guys are connected to people with money, or they have money themselves. They've made money. They've got the experience. And if you're very financially motivated and you're looking for big success, then of course those are good friends to be around and talk to. You learn a lot from them for sure. The other thing to consider when you do get investment as well is dilution. That is when, say for example, you take, say like you are 100% owner of your business. Once you get an investment, an equity investor on board, they will obviously take a percentage of the company. And as other investors come on board, that they will take a bigger percentage, and that means that you will get less of the pie. So your percentage will go down. So you have to consider dilution. You've also got to consider things like your targets and how much your company is valued now and in the future, and also having a comparison. These things I don't really have a lot of experience with. I did do a little bit of that in terms of reading around and looking at how much Cobalt Play would be worth, and obviously it's worth nothing now. But I did do that at the time a few years back. Oh god, I'm in the right gear. But it's definitely a big consideration, and educating yourself on that is very important, I think, because you might get a big shock, you know, a year later when you're about to take on like a Series B investment round or whatever it's called, and then all of a sudden you find that your percentages dwindled down to 0.5% or something. But if it's 0.5% of $1 billion company, then great. You know, that might be exactly what you want, but you will lose control in that situation. But if it's mainly sort of the financial gains and then the peace of mind that you'll get from having money in the bank, then definitely go for it. So I'm really curious, guys. You guys are on the channel and have listened to me for a couple of years now. Have you ever tried to do it? Have you ever tried to get investment? I know Eric, I mentioned you at the start of the video from Overpass. Definitely check out his channel, guys. He talks a lot about apps and games and the business, specifically of apps and games. I think if you drop a comment, Eric, I'm sorry, I think it's called Overpass. I think your channel is called Overpass. Definitely check it out, guys. But I am curious to know what you think as well, if you've ever gone down that route, because I think you've had a lot more communication with clients and you've been much more sort of people-facing than I've been over the past few years, because most of my time over the past few years has been in code. You know, I've been working mostly on my skill as a coder and trying to be as good at that as I can be. So I'm about home now, guys. I think that took me about 45 minutes to drive, and that was okay. And so this video was, oh wait, no, it took me, well, the video's been going for 35 minutes, so it took me about 5 minutes away, about 40 minutes or so, roughly. That was quite a smooth drive, that, today. That was nice. So, guys, I hope you're enjoying these videos. Please let me know. The channel is changing if I continue to do these videos, of course. So it's going to be, I'm thinking of basically rebranding the channel. At the moment, it's how to make mobile games, but I might rebrand the YouTube channel to be focused more on general business and talk about things like this, including games as well, of course, because that's mainly my experience, but talking about things where, for example, making passive income with cryptocurrencies, making money as an affiliate, making money through real estate, and sharing those with you and trying to figure out, you know, as I'm going through my journey of making more passive income and sharing with you guys, figuring out if it's better to rebrand the channel that way, and hopefully you guys continue to enjoy them. So do let me know in the comments, guys, if you're liking these videos, and I'll try to keep up and try to do one every day or other day as I'm driving. That would be nice if I've got the energy. Energy is always a key consideration, obviously, because it's you can be quite tired at the end of the day. So anyway, guys, have a great week wherever you are. I hope business is going good. If you're developing, I hope development is going good, and I will chat to you all really soon. See you later. Bye bye.